Story of Horror. The old mansion loomed in the distance as Jenny pulled up the long driveway. Its once grand structure was now cloaked in decay. Vines crawled up the cracked walls, and most windows were either shattered or thick with grime. Jenny hadn't planned on spending her night here, but when her car broke down and the storm began, she had no choice. She pushed the heavy iron gate open, its hinges squealing like something out of a nightmare. Just until the rain stops, she whispered to herself, stepping inside. The foyer was vast and dim, lit only by occasional flashes of lightning outside. A thick layer of dust coated the floor, and cobwebs hung from every corner. She pulled out her phone to use as a flashlight, only to realize the battery was nearly dead. The only option left was to explore with what little light the storm offered. The doors creaked and groaned, echoing through the empty halls as she moved deeper inside, each step kicking up clouds of dust. Then a sound. At first, Jenny thought it was thunder, but the noise grew closer and more distinct, resembling a faint, rhythmic tapping. She followed it, heart pounding. It seemed to come from the end of a narrow hallway, where a heavy door stood slightly ajar. When she nudged it open, the tapping stopped. Inside the room, she found an old piano, its keys yellowed with age. She took a step back, ready to leave, when she heard a soft whisper, "Stay with me." Her blood froze. She spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but there was no one there. The voice was faint, like a distant echo, and sounded more like a child's plea than a threat. Gathering what little courage she had, she called out, "Who's there?" Silence, save for the rain hammering against the mansion's broken windows. She took a few steps back, her hands fumbling for the doorknob, but before she could reach it, the piano played a single, haunting note. The sound rang through the room, hanging in the stale air long after it should have faded. The note sounded again, and then another, forming a melody, a song filled with sorrow. Jenny could feel the chill seeping into her bones, as if the music itself were calling her forward. She moved closer to the piano, hand trembling as she reached out to touch it. Just as her fingers brushed one of the keys, she heard the whisper again, louder this time. "Stay with me." The lights flickered briefly, illuminating a figure standing by the piano. A little girl with hollow, dark eyes and a white dress covered in dirt. Jenny gasped, stumbling backward, her breath catching in her throat. The girl stared at her, unblinking, her eyes filled with a strange, desperate sadness. "I'm lost," the girl whispered. "Help me find my way." Jenny backed away slowly, the door creaking as she bumped into it. She fumbled for the knob, but it wouldn't budge. Panic flared in her chest. The girl was moving closer, her footsteps eerily silent. Her eyes locked onto Jenny with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Jenny tried the door again, harder this time, but it remained locked. She turned back to the girl, who was now only a few feet away. "Please," the girl's voice was a chilling blend of sorrow and malice. "Stay with me." The girl extended her hand, and Jenny felt a cold, invisible force wrapping around her wrist, pulling her toward the piano. She struggled, but the grip tightened, like icy tendrils binding her in place. As she was dragged closer, the melody resumed, playing the same haunting notes over and over, louder and louder, until it felt like the sound was tearing through her mind. Desperately, Jenny screamed, "Let me go!" But the girl only tilted her head, her expression unreadable, and whispered once more, "Stay with me." With a final thunderous crash, the door flew open and Jenny felt the grip loosen. She stumbled back, gasping, and bolted from the room. Not daring to look back, she raced through the dark corridors, heart pounding as the whispers faded behind her. When she burst outside into the rain, she didn't stop running until she was far from the mansion, the shadows of its walls lost in the darkness. But even as she reached the safety of the road, she could still hear it. the faint, mournful melody of the piano echoing in her mind, and the whispered plea that would haunt her forever. Stay with me.